Welcome to Talkin Ball with Scott Theisen. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
And just like that, we're off and running another brand new live edition of Talking Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone, coming to you live from Bill Penny Toyota here in the service department. Once again, the doors are open. They're ready to service your vehicle Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then on Saturday, bring your car out here 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Bill Penny Service Department here on the campus of Bill Penny Toyota. They will take care of all your service needs. And then while you're here, make sure you head up to the showroom, test drive one of those brand new Toyotas, great financing deals available, and you can register to win $5,000 courtesy of Bill Penny Toyota. We're going to be here today. We're going to be here tomorrow. We're going to be here Wednesday. We're going to be here Thursday. So if you want to come on out, say hi, and hang out, we're going to be out all week. It is Monday. Welcome in. That means we can get your good, your bad, and your ugly from over the weekend. 256-576-4977. We need your good, your bad, and the ugly from over the weekend. What did you see around college football? What did you see around the world of sports that makes you think the good, the bad, and the ugly? Good probably would have to be the way the score looked in the Alabama-Tennessee game. If you're an Alabama fan, 52-24. Is there good from Tennessee? Yes, there is good from Tennessee. Josh Heupel building something there in Knoxville. You have to love the enthusiasm. You have to love the way the players in orange and white compete and competed Saturday in Tuscaloosa. Ultimately, though, Alabama just way too much there. Alabama made some mistakes in that game. Not all was perfect from the Crimson Tide standpoint, but enough to get that 52-24 convincing win. Ole Miss over LSU, 31-17. You got to like the way they performed on Manning Day in Oxford. Texas A&M over South Carolina, 44-14. Arkansas over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 45-3. Mississippi State, no problems with Vanderbilt, 45-6. So good, the bad, the ugly from over the weekend. We want to hear what you have to say on this Monday live from Bill Penny Toyota.
What's going on, Scott? It was a good win for the University of Alabama. They played their C-minus game and still beat Tennessee by 4 touchdowns. I thought Bryce Young was tremendous. He controlled the game from the start. Used his legs more in this game. Had a couple of rushing touchdowns and kept some plays alive also with his legs to get big first downs. And I thought, it was a little bit of a rough go early, especially in the first half. Jamison Williams dropped the first pass of the game. And then, Alabama got a punt blocked and certainly did not play, and then missed a 54-yard field goal after some penalties pushed them back. So they didn't play great early, but they certainly led 21-14 at halftime, and then they put the game away in the second half. Certainly Tennessee fought hard for 3 quarters, but Alabama's depth, coaching, and talent took over, and they were able to win for the 15th straight time over Tennessee.
That's what I'm saying. If you're a Tennessee fan, you knew going in you were going to be fighting an uphill battle. You knew going in that you were going to have to play perfect beyond means if you were going to beat Alabama. Hendon Hooker got the start for Tennessee, which is something we didn't know we would see. But if you're a Tennessee fan, you have to look at aspects of that game and think, Josh Heupel has this team playing better than what we've seen Tennessee play in quite some time.
Yeah, he does, and yet they're still 28 points worse than Alabama.
Well, I'm not comparing them to that game. I'm just saying that if you're Josh Heupel, if you're a Tennessee fan, you have to like what you saw on Saturday at certain points.
Well, I thought they fought and they played hard. They certainly are a well-coached team. Hendon Hooker showed a lot of toughness playing in the game. So did Tyrion Evans. But I thought the biggest key was Alabama stopped the run. They never really allowed Tennessee's running game to be a factor.
Because they were averaging over 200 yards a game coming in.
But certainly Alabama defensively, once again, they didn't play a complete game. They actually, one of the bigger sequences in the game was after the punt block. They did hold Tennessee to 3 points and basically stuffed them. And they only gave up one, I would say extended drive in the game. That was, the first one, the first touchdown, and then in the opening half. Otherwise, I mean, they gave up a long touchdown pass. After the punt block, 58 yards. That was a coverage bust there. Then they gave up the Cedric Tillman deep ball near the end of the third quarter. Now, I mean, I was listening to a lot of things afterwards and seeing things on Twitter, and some of the Tennessee fans were complaining about the officiating. But when you watch the Cedric Tillman play, I mean, it looked like to me he left early. Certainly Josh Jobe has to pay better attention. He wasn't ready when the ball was snapped, but it looked like it was a false start that was missed by the SEC officials. So, I mean, we've talked about the officiating every week, but again, I thought it was a little bit shaky in the game. I know there was some controversy about one of Bryce Young's touchdowns, but I watched the replay, and, of course, the Tennessee coaches and some of the fans were saying, well, the Vols came out of the pile with the ball. Well, guess what? Bryce Young recovered it first, and it doesn't matter how long. If he recovers it in the end zone, even for a split second, for half a second, if he has the ball in his hands over the plane of the goal line, it's a touchdown, okay? That's just the way it is. That's the way it is when you judge something like that. And so and then, of course, there was a scrum afterwards, and a Tennessee guy comes away with it, but it's not their football.
Right.
He recovered it first. It's a touchdown, Alabama. So, and so I thought, that again, Bryce played one of his better games, and he's played well throughout the season. I mean, he's really saved Alabama because, again, they didn't play well early. The running game was a work in progress. It wore down Tennessee. But we kind of figured that because Tennessee, just doesn't have the depth that they need right now. The biggest thing for Coach Heupel is going to be to get these guys healed up during the bye week, and then they have, Kentucky and Lexington. That's going to be a huge swing game for their season because to me, that's going to decide whether or not Tennessee has a winning record. It's going to decide whether they're 7-5 or not because they don't have a chance against Georgia. They are going to get smashed. And then I think the last two games of the season for them are very winnable. So if they can find a way to upset Kentucky, they can go 7-5. But I still think it's a successful season when you take it into context because they lost 30-plus guys in the portal. They're continuing to play hard. They competed hard. And then, Hendon Hooker, I know he's a senior from Virginia Tech, but he's given them a lot of leadership and production from the quarterback position, and I'm sure that this style of offense is going to be attractive to recruits. So again, a good showing for Tennessee, but Alabama takes care of business, and now Alabama gets to go into the bye and try to heal up and recharge and play against Ed Ogeron's Tigers, who of course got flattened in Oxford, led 7-0, gave them a little hope, but then for the rest of the game were severely outplayed by Matt Corral and Ole Miss.
Special teams, mental lapses, though, the roughing the kicker, any area for concern there for Alabama?
Well, of course, you have to clean all that up. I mean, Daniel Wright got benched, after the first touchdown pass when he took there was a coverage bust and he took a bad angle, missed the tackle. We saw DeMarco Hellams the rest of that game. Unfortunately for Daniel Wright, that's basically his career in a microcosm. He makes a lot of mistakes mentally, even though he's a senior, and he should know how to execute a little bit better. But he's never been a real physical guy. He's never been a great tackler, and so if you're making mistakes in coverage back there, they're going to go with someone else. They gave Hellams another shot, and of course Hellams has been a little banged up, but Hellams played the rest of the majority of the game, and the safety play improved certainly. Again, Jobe's play was unfortunate. But you have to clean up those couple of busts back there, no doubt. And then you have to clean up the roughing the kicker because, again, Chris Braswell, the punter, had blocked a punt early in the season for a touchdown, but you just have to make sure you're going to get there because it's 4th and 20. And so that's just not a real good situation there because you give Tennessee the ball back and then Javonte Payton catches the 58-yard touchdown and you put your defense in a bind because they have to go right back out there. It's almost like a sudden change. It's really like a turnover. And so that's why Tennessee led, really self-inflicted wounds for Alabama the first quarter, and Josh Heupel's team came out and really played, their tails off early, and Alabama was their own worst enemy. It had a feeling kind of like Texas A&M in the first half because Alabama made so many mistakes, but unlike the A&M game, one, Tennessee's not as talented, and two, Alabama did right themselves in the second half. They did not continue to make mistakes. They did not continue to turn the ball over, though I will say Jaleel Billingsley had another burn-the-tape game because he would have had a touchdown down the middle of the field from Bryce Young, and he dropped it. So right now he needs a sack. So I don't know what they're going to do to get his confidence back. Now Cameron Latou, to credit him, he did make a big mistake in the game. He and Kenry To'oTo'o on the block punt. They both missed blocks on the James Burnett block. But I will say Latou caught the football. Didn't have any drops, and so offensively when he was in there, he did his job. I thought he was decent as a blocker, so he at least bounced back somewhat. But during this off week, I don't know if they need, we don't need Charlie Plott to go down there with Plott Performance or something and talk to Jaleel, but somebody has got to get his mind right to where he can become a factor on this team again because they're going to need him down the stretch because they've got some challenges coming up. They're certainly going to be favored in every game, going forward. But, LSU's struggling a little bit. So is Arkansas. So is New Mexico State. But, again, you've also got Auburn at the end. And right now Auburn has got a huge game coming up against Ole Miss. And Auburn controls their own destiny in the Western Division right now. A lot of people aren't talking about that, but they really do because both Alabama and Auburn only have one loss. But Auburn also has to play Texas A&M. So Auburn's schedule, in November is going to be difficult.
All right, let's get out to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Plenty of phone calls there. First, let's go to Spencer this morning. Good morning, Spencer.
Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Drew. Man, I tell you what, sitting in that stadium on Saturday night, I think I've lost all my fingernails in those first three quarters, man. But let me tell you something, dude. When Bryce Young fumbled that ball into the end zone, they were lined up to kick the extra point, and Josh Heupel was 5 yards out on the field, causing the referees to stop play. He doesn't get charged a timeout for that, and then they stop and review it. But Alabama was ready to snap the ball and kick the extra point, and they couldn't do that because Josh Heupel was 5 yards out on the field. How does he not get charged for a timeout right there?
Because they're supposed to review. I guess if you're looking at it, they're supposed to review every scoring play anyway, right? On a touchdown?
They are. He was trying to make sure it was going to be reviewed. But, again, the way they held up the game, he could have been flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. But I think the officials cut him some slack because they were trying to make sure it was a touchdown. Now, according to what he said after the game, one of the officials said that they didn't have the view from the camera to be able to tell, definitively what happened. But I was watching it on now I couldn't. I was in the stadium, but it was hard for me to tell because
they had a view from on the TV when watching it.
Yeah,
they had a view.
Well, yeah, the jumbotron, and the two huge video boards. I was trying to see if I could tell anything, but I couldn't. But I had people messaging me that watched it on TV.
No, yeah, I was watching it on TV. Yeah, you could see they had the shot right down the goal line. You could see the ball come out beforehand,
right?
But you could also see him recover it at the end. And then when they got up, there was a fight for the ball.
And
Tennessee
then they got the ball out. And we got the ball now.
Right, but no, whatever. You could see clearly that the ball did come out and he did recover it.
Right. Look, you want to talk about unsportsmanlike conduct, man. We were sick and tired sitting in that stadium, sick and tired of Tennessee fans laying on the ground. On that exact same play where Bryce Young scored a touchdown, one of their players was laying on the ground, and a coach ran out and was motioning for him to get up. because they didn't want him to stay down that time. There was one touchdown where two of the guys were laying on the dadgum ground, and they immediately
they were
back
faking
up,
injuries
walk off
left
the
and right.
sideline.
It was a joke.
I mean,
That has got to be the
ridiculous.
biggest. That's got to be the biggest problem in college football. It surfaced at the Alabama game, and it surfaced a couple games throughout the weekend that I was watching. That has to be one of the biggest problems in college football right now that nobody knows how to clean up.
Look, there has got to be a rule instituted next season where if you go down with an injury in a drive, you have to sit out the remainder of that entire drive. They've got to add that in because people are doing it left and right, and it's causing the games to slow down way too much, man. It's getting a little out of hand. But, hey, guys, roll tide. I didn't get to talk to you last week, Scott, so I'm real sorry about your Iowa Hawkeyes, man, falling to Purdue. That was a real big bummer.
Well, we didn't lose this week. We didn't play either.
Thing we want to talk about that I don't know if y'all talked about. You talked about Auburn being in charge of their own destiny, but Ole Miss, if Ole Miss were to win out and Alabama couldn't get past Georgia in the SEC championship game, Ole Miss has a pretty good resume for going to the playoffs. Y'all have a good one.
Ole Miss is this year's Texas A&M from last year.
Well, Ole Miss has still got to play Auburn and Texas A&M.
Right, I'm just saying, though, if they go through with one loss, if they get all the way through with one loss, they're this year's Texas A&M where they got beat handily by Alabama, and they're going to get left out.
Well, we'll see if they can even do it. I have my doubts. They have to play at Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Auburn. I don't think they'll win them all. I think they might win a couple of them, but they'll blow one of them because they're Ole Miss. And then they can go to maybe a Big Six Bowl, maybe a Citrus Bowl or whatever and have their little fun. But they're not going to the college football playoff. This is college football. It's what they do.
They joke.
Okay.